In 1799, a 29-year-old soldier walked into the French government, pointed cannons at the lawmakers, and said 3 words, "I am France." Within 5 years, kings would kneel before him. Within 10, he would control 90 million people across an empire stretching from Spain to Moscow. But here's what they never teach you. It wasn't his military genius that conquered Europe. It was something far more terrifying, something that still echoes in every revolution, every uprising, every empire built today. And once you understand it, you'll never look at power the same way again. This is Clusterstory, where we take a deep dive into history to get a great understanding of how we got here. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the bell, like, and share this video. Corsica, 1769. A rocky island in the Mediterranean that France had just conquered from Genoa. Here, in a modest stone house, a boy was born to a family that was barely noble, barely French, and barely surviving. His name was Napoleon Bonaparte, not Napoleon Bonaparte. That name would come later. That name would be invented, manufactured, like everything else about the man who would reshape the world. Young Napoleone spoke Italian. He had a thick Corsican accent that his French classmates would mock relentlessly when he arrived at military school at the age of 9. He was short. He was poor by aristocratic standards. He was an outsider in every sense of the word. And this sense of being forever on the outside looking in, would become the fuel that burned empires to the ground. At military school, while other boys played, Napoleon read. He consumed books on history, geography, and military strategy with an obsessive hunger. Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, Hannibal. He didn't just study them, he memorized them. He became them. By the age of 16, he was a commissioned artillery officer. By 24, he was a general, but France was about to hand him something that no amount of genius could buy: chaos. "1789. The French Revolution exploded. The old world of kings and nobles collapsed in blood and fire. Heads rolled. Literally. King Louis XVI was executed. The aristocracy was hunted. And in this hurricane of violence and change, something remarkable happened. The old rules vanished. Suddenly, birth meant nothing. Titles meant nothing. In this new France, you could rise as high as your talent, your ambition, and your ruthlessness could carry you. Napoleon understood this immediately. While others saw destruction, he saw opportunity. The Revolutionary Wars had begun, and France was surrounded by enemies: Austria, Prussia, Britain, Spain, the Netherlands. All of Europe united to crush the revolution and restore the monarchy. France needed generals, desperately. In 1793, a young Captain Napoleon got his first real chance. The British had seized the port of Toulon. Other generals failed to retake it. Napoleon was given command of the artillery. His plan was audacious, almost suicidal. He positioned his guns on a cliff overlooking the harbor, under direct enemy fire. He personally led charges. He was stabbed with a bayonet. He didn't stop. And when Toulon fell, when the British fleet fled in flames, everyone knew his name. But here is where the true secret begins to reveal itself. Napoleon wasn't just winning battles, he was winning minds. After every victory, he didn't just report to Paris, he published. He created his own newspapers for his soldiers. He commissioned artists. He wrote proclamations that were more poetry than military communication. When he invaded Italy in 1796 with a starving, ragged army, he told them, "Soldiers, you are naked and ill-fed. I will lead you into the most fertile plains in the world. Rich provinces and great cities will be in your power. There you will find honor, glory, and riches." This was propaganda perfected. This was something the monarchs of Europe could never understand. Napoleon wasn't just commanding men, he was inspiring them. He was creating a story in which they were the heroes and he was their destined leader. He understood a truth that still governs our world today. Perception is power. Control the narrative and you control everything. The Italian campaign was a masterclass. Outnumbered, outgunned, he destroyed army after army through speed, audacity, and sheer willpower. He won battle after battle. Lodi, Arcole, Rivoli. He humiliated Austria. He made France rich with plunder, and all the while he sent home stories of his glory, his brilliance, his divine destiny. France didn't just admire him, France began to worship him. But Napoleon wanted more. In 1798, he launched the most bizarre military campaign in modern history. He invaded Egypt. Why? The official reason was to threaten British trade routes to India. The real reason was far more calculated. Napoleon wasn't just a general, he was building a legend. He brought with him 167 scientists, mathematicians, and artists. While his soldiers fought in the shadow of the pyramids, these scholars mapped, studied, and cataloged ancient Egypt. They discovered the Rosetta Stone. They sparked modern Egyptology. Napoleon positioned himself as a new Alexander, a philosopher-warrior, a man of destiny spreading enlightenment. It didn't matter that the campaign was ultimately a military disaster. It didn't matter that the British destroyed his fleet at the Battle of the Nile and stranded his army. Napoleon controlled the story, and the story said he was a genius touched by fate. When he abandoned his army and secretly returned to France in 1799, he wasn't fleeing failure. He was returning as a conquering hero. The government was weak, corrupt, and despised. France was tired of chaos. They wanted order. They wanted strength. They wanted a savior. Napoleon gave them exactly what they wanted. November 9th, 1799. The coup of 18 Brumaire. Napoleon and his conspirators dissolved the Directory, the governing body of France. When lawmakers resisted, Napoleon's soldiers cleared the chamber at bayonet point. It was messy. It was almost a failure. But by morning, it was done. Napoleon was first consul, effectively dictator. And now the real transformation began. Here is the secret. Here is the true reason Napoleon conquered Europe. It wasn't just his tactical genius, though that was extraordinary. It wasn't just his tireless energy, though he slept 4 hours a night and worked constantly. It wasn't luck, though fortune favored him. It was this. Napoleon understood that the French Revolution had changed everything. The old world of kings was dying. A new world of nations, of citizens, of popular sovereignty was being born. And Napoleon weaponized it. His armies didn't fight for a king. They fought for an idea, for liberty, for equality, for the glory of France. His soldiers believed they were spreading freedom, breaking the chains of oppression, building a new world. This gave them a fanaticism, a motivation that mercenary armies fighting for distant monarchs could never match. Napoleon reformed France completely. He created the Napoleonic Code, a legal system based on merit, equality before the law, and rational governance. He built roads, schools, universities. He created the Bank of France. He modernized everything he touched, and wherever his armies went, these ideas followed. The old feudal structures crumbled. The old aristocratic privileges collapsed. The kings of Europe weren't just fighting an army. They were fighting a revolution, an idea. And ideas are bulletproof. In 1804, Napoleon crowned himself emperor. In the Cathedral of Notre Dame, in front of the Pope himself, Napoleon took the crown and placed it on his own head. No one would give him power. He would take it. The message was unmistakable. The years that followed were an avalanche of conquest. Austerlitz, Jena, Friedland, Wagram. Napoleon shattered coalition after coalition. He humiliated emperors and kings. He redrew the map of Europe. His brothers sat on thrones across the continent. At his peak, he controlled an empire of 90 million souls. But in building his empire, Napoleon also planted the seeds of his destruction. The very nationalism he had unleashed would turn against him. Spain would rise in guerrilla war. Russia would burn itself rather than submit. The peoples of Europe would eventually fight for their own nations, using the very ideas Napoleon had spread. Napoleon would eventually fall. Defeated at Leipzig, exiled to Elba, he would return for the 100 Days, only to meet his final end at Waterloo. He died in exile on the remote island of St. Helena in 1821, possibly poisoned, definitely broken. But his true conquest was never just territory. Napoleon conquered time itself. The Napoleonic Code still forms the basis of legal systems in dozens of countries. The administrative structures he created endure. The nationalism he unleashed reshaped the 19th and 20th centuries. The very idea that a common man could rise to reshape the world, that idea lives on. This was the true reason Napoleon conquered Europe. Not cannons, not cavalry, not the genius of his military mind. It was the power of a story. The story that a new world was possible. The story that the old chains could be broken. The story that destiny belonged to whoever had the courage to seize it. Napoleon didn't just fight battles, he fought for the soul of an age. And in that battle, even in that defeat, he won. History is not just the past. It is the blueprint of the future. If you want to understand where we're going, you must understand where we've been. Subscribe to Clusterstory, turn on notifications, and join us as we uncover the stories that shaped our world.